I'm going for Ryan Yates. He's one of those that can kiss the badge on the shirt justifiably. You know, he really cares. So very outward in his chat and looks you in the eye. And Hudson-Odoi and Chris Wood and Murillo and Milenkovic, Matt Sells, they're all probably mentioned before Ryan.
The joy of football.
And the last commentary I did up to this point was Brighton against Nottingham Forest, which went to extra time and penalties. And from that game and the subsequent game, which I watched on television but didn't commentate on, I got home to Manchester United when Nuno Espirito Santo became the first Nottingham Forest manager since Brian Clough to do a league double over Manchester United. I'm going for Ryan Yates, who's not always captain, but I think he might be the club captain. He doesn't always start, but he's been 20 years at Forest since he was 7 years old, and he got his first pro contract in 2016. So that's getting on for 9 years ago now. And when they got promoted, I did an early Forest game when they got promoted under Steve Cooper, and Steve was fantastic to me and other commentators, you know, very open about, and he said, come to the training, I'll introduce you to the players. And I introduced Ryan, who was quite, how shall I say, infectiously excited about playing in a Premier League game on television, and as though he recognised that he'd come up the ladder, you know. And we all like people like this, let alone footballers like this, but very outward in his chat and looks you in the eye, and you know. So it was a pleasure to meet him, and of course there've been a lot of players he's played with since that particular day with the chopping and changing. But against Brighton, he played the 120 minutes. And of course, and was in the thick of an action. It was a very interesting way Forest played. We know that they sit in. I'm not calling it a low block. They get players behind the ball. That's what they do, and then counter attack with pacey counter attacking players. But Ryan's at the heart. He can get forward. He does score some goals, but he's not in the team for that. He's not on my list of you might get a goal from him. But he did get the goal in the sense that he scored the winning penalty. And after all this, and they're away from home, and they've won 2 previous penalty shootouts. They lost one in the Carabao Cup, actually, to Newcastle, but they were in good FA Cup penalty shooting form. But even so, and I said at the right moment, they had the right man. Mm. And he buried the penalty, ran the length of the field to the Forest fans It wasn't, aren't I cool? It was, aren't I a Forest person? You know, I want to share with everybody. And then he played the 90 minutes against Manchester United. So that was only, 3 days later. So he's had a very good past few days. But I think he's somebody within, always, I'm talking about Alanga and Gibbs-White and Hudson-Odoi and Chris Wood and Murillo and Milenkovic. Matt Sells, they're all probably mentioned before Ryan. Yeah. And I think this particular week, I like to pick players that I've seen.
Mr. Dependable.
Yeah, dynamically dependable. You know, he's not the most technically gifted player, but he's got, as I say, an engine. But he's one of those that can kiss the badge on the shirt justifiably. You know, he really cares. So he's my player.